Hey guys, I was having a chat with Jonny Carter from TGS the other week. I'm sure he needs no introduction. And I just came up on the idea that maybe you guys would find it useful to have some advice about what to do with your guns while they're laid up in storage. If you're like me, your gun never rests for very long, and it's not been sat for a long time, whereas all of a sudden now we're looking at potentially months of static storage where they're not getting taken out to be used. So I had a chat with Jonny, and we thought we'd come up with some practical advice for you during this time. Take a look.
As we are going to be in a sort of enforced gun storage period, a lot of clay shooters probably use their guns all year round. I know I do. My guns never rest. They're never sat for longer than, maybe at most a week in between being used. And using them means that I'm looking at them, means I'm inspecting them, I can see if there's any rust or anything where they're getting wet or out like that. And maybe a lot of shooters aren't used to that. Obviously, game shooters, different breeds, their guns live probably 8 months of the year, sat in a bloody cabinet, covered in rust and whatnot, and then get dug out and thrown at a gunsmith to sort out. But that's a different breed. Yeah. So I winterized. I took all my guns out the other day. Now I give them a thorough clean. Oiled and greased everything, put them all away again after running a patch through with some oil on. I've changed out the silica gel packs that I keep in my cabinet. Mine have like an indicator in them so that they turn a different colour when they're damp. Yeah. And it's just that's what I've done to try and I'll probably take them out in a couple of weeks' time. Just give them a once over just to make sure everything's okay. I'm not going to do any more than that, but I just wonder, are people thinking that? Is that in their heads, or are they just put them aside and then in however many months' time it is to dig them out and they find they've got an orange browning?
Well, there are plenty of orange brownies out there. They seem to be the ones that are orange pretty much faster than anybody else because they use superior steel for the barrels. Obviously, no other reason.
I was just using browning as an example.
So you've pretty much done everything right there, Lloyd, to be fair. And starting from the back to the front, it's the cabinet is where most of the damage is done. That I see, at least. What most people will do is clean the guns, chuck it in the cabinet, and, as you say, leave it for 6 or 7 months. Mm-hmm. And it's only when they take it out they realise that they've got a damp cabinet. Mm. And it doesn't have to appear damp, and everyone who ever brings a gun in that's bollocks goes, oh, my cabinet's absolutely dry, and you go, well, there's clearly not. There's clearly something there that needs to be addressed. Whether you know that or not, it doesn't matter. Buying, how much is a hydro patch or a drying out patch now? 6 or 7 quid. Or you buy one of those Uber boxes you can clip to the top of your cabinet for about 20 quid, and they will suck every piece of water out of there possible. The alternative is I have seen people chuck, if you buy those little lizard heat mats, you can get those, plug them in, they run real low voltage, they cost nothing, and they just heat your cabinet up permanently. Keep your cabinet at a nice 20 odd degrees. Your guns will be warm, sweet, dry. But that, it depends how much you care for your gun. Most people will just give it extra oil. Buying a 7 or 8 quid patch is quite extortionate to some people, which I think is ridiculous, seeing as you're looking after your $2,000 gun. But that is the place to start. If you don't want to do that, you need to essentially grease wrap your gun. You know, when you buy the gun and you open it up and it comes with all the paper around it, with all the grease in? Pardon. That's pretty much what you need to do. That's the alternative to actually sucking the water out of the air, is to not let any air touch the gun. Did you see as well that Beretta now on all grade 3 and above guns comes with sticky oil tape down the barrels? I think that's quite a sweet touch, actually. And I think that kind of thing, that's perfectly acceptable to your gun long term as well. If you are storing for long term, is essentially to emulate that, is just to get some grease paper and just stick it to the barrels.
Yeah.
If you want. Now stepping back to the gun itself. Well, it depends how deep you want to go, right? We're all different. Yeah. We're all aware that we're all different. Just cleaning it is going to be better than not cleaning it. Mm-hmm. Just because the barrels are chromed or are rust resistant doesn't mean the rest of the gun is. So generally, just giving it a good clean is going to be better than doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And that goes all the way up to actually literally melting down grease and wiping your entire gun to keep it as a sealed unit, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody, because actually to take all of that packing grease off again is like a day's task. Sorry. I have a persistent cough that's been around for about 2 days.
Sounds quite testy though.
Pardon me. So I would just say an uber clean is the way to go. Yeah. So clean your barrels as you usually would. Definitely take your chokes out if you have a multi-choke.
Absolutely.
It's the time that putting extra grease on those is a really good idea, because any water or moisture that's inside of those, this is the time that they're going to seize if they haven't seized already, if you don't look after them, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and I don't generally run my chokes, or you shouldn't run chokes with too much grease, but this is the time to over grease.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Not over tighten as well.
Sorry?
And not over tighten when you put them back.
No. Just leave them in loose, or even take them out the gun completely.
Yeah.
If you want. However, I would always leave them in, purely because it keeps grease on the contact of those threads, and some guns aren't chromed in the thread section or the choke section of the gun.
Indeed, because so after it's chromed.
Yeah, worth just keeping that safe. Second, on the same thing for the barrels, is to take your ejectors out and clean them. Anywhere that dirt hides and can sit and fester, or water or moisture or corrosive dirt, more importantly, can sit and hide, is bad. So it's the time to pop all your ejectors out, clean inside them. Again, over-greasing is an acceptable thing at this point, but when you take it out of storage, you do need to take some of the grease out, or else it can really kind of gunk up the way the gun operates. But taking your ejectors out, giving them a good clean, even if you just oil them and put them back in, that's going to be better than nothing, but it's the time to put grease on your ejectors in not in moderation. Next comes back to the action. Depending on the gun that you buy, a lot of guns come with stock tools, and as much as I recommend that most people never use them, it's the time that, if you would like, you can take your stock off with your stock tool, get inside the action, and just get some gun oil, light lubricating gun oil, and spray the absolute crap out of it. Spray it, fill it with oil, because at this point, actually, it's not going to do any harm. But it needs to be a light oil. Putting a thick oil in there is going to gunk up the inside of your action, and you're going to feel mighty foolish when it comes to the point where you take it out and just go and shoot it. Again, this whole thing comes with the caveat that when you take it out of storage, you repeat this same process. You degrease the gun, and you then give it a very light oiling and a little bit of grease in the correct areas that, well, those who know will know, and those who don't need to bother. But just a touch of oil on the inside of the action would be an intelligent move. After we've been allowed to go out and shoot and play again, which will be great fun, right?
Yeah. I think. Sorry, carry on.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I mean, as you say, everybody that's ever brought a gun in orange, there's nothing wrong with my cabinet. They always say, oh, there's no damp in my house. You know what I mean? I've checked, my cabinet's not damp. But what you don't realise is that on a daily cycle, your central heating is on and off, which means your house is heating and cooling. And your cabinet is a large metal box that resists temperature change, so it stays cold. And all of the guns in it tends to stay cold. And what happens when you've got a cold thing and a warm thing is that you get condensation. And then once everything warms up again, that condensation all evaporates. So you can appear to have a dry cabinet, and you really haven't. And it's just one of those things that people don't quite seem to get.
Very, very much so. Very much so. And a lot of people, like I say, they don't take that into account, and that's where you end up with brown guns.
Exactly.
Which, I think it's funny. It's happened to me, and I think it's funny only on the basis that if you don't laugh at these sort of situations, you'll cry. And usually the damage is kind of superficial.
Yes.
It's just a matter of a re-black, which is going to be a few £100, which is a lot of money. So avoiding that is, for the sake of a 5 or 10 quid worth of cleaning product, is right.
Exactly. And half an hour of that, depending on how many guns you've got, obviously. But you know, it's a good time to give the gun a right good cleaning. I know many people who think cleaning's a waste of time, and you know, maybe
they're in a pull through. Bet they're in a pull through.
Exactly. They're going to pull through, and they just yank that through the gun every time, or every 15th time, and that's as much as they ever need to do. And they've got chrome balls, they don't give a toss.
Because I am that guy who shoots it and then will not clean it and use it like 6 or 7 months later, because I have quite a few and I through them. And even then, so I used to be, this is actually a lie, I used to be absolutely anal with my favorite guns, and then have some beaters that I would abuse, because I think that's acceptable to have guns that you hate enough that you don't care about.
Of course. We've all got those.
Yeah, they got to be cheap and nasty, and you know, I was going to say foreign then, but all my guns are foreign, so cheap and nasty, and usually made in countries of lesser quality. So we had a big flood at the shop a couple of years ago, and me and Dave had been pigeon shooting the night before. We'd taken our guns and just put them in on the floor of the lockup, which was the last guns to come out of the flood, and hence they were the last guns to be cleaned after everyone else's were clean and gone through, and after that point, it was rancid and dead. But I still loved the gun and didn't want to spend money on doing it up because I didn't have any. Yeah. Ever since, it's been a long downhill slope of that gun rotting and me going, hey, it's been worse. It's been worse. Anyway, going back to the thing, once you've done that, put your stock back on. Stock is an important thing as well because lots of people get moldy stocks and don't realize. And it can manifest either like in this really amazing blue fluffy mold, which I've seen at the worst end of the spectrum, all the way through just to like a very light white mold patch that you can't really tell. It just looks like a dull spot. Don't oil your guns do oil your stocks if you want before you put them in, but make sure you use something called a burnishing cream that you actually are putting a wax on the surface. You're sealing off that stock to the world. That burnishing cream will also rub off any crap, any spores, anything that's starting that you can't see, and that's always good. Plus, it makes your stock look really pretty. So when you take your gun out and it looks all shiny, you go, yeah, I really care for this thing.
Any recommended creams that you use?
No. There's a couple of burnishing creams out there. They're all pretty good. I've never used a bad one. I tried making my own once and then realised that actually, because the tubs are only £7, they're about as good as they get. Yeah. There's some great waxes out there as well that will do the same job, but a burnishing cream actually has a mild grit to it, will also polish the woodwork at the same time. So that's kind of the priority of removing all the crap from the wood. Pardon. So what would be great also is the forend, and lots of people will neglect their forend, and every gun has different forends and different work inside the forend, so some guns' forends are a priority over and above others. The wood needs the same treatment, but it's also the internal mechanism. So, for example, on something like a Beretta, you've got the two little ejector arms in there that go up and down.
Yes.
On a little spring. Make sure they're clean, because I've seen them seized 2 or 3 times.
Aye.
On a Browning, not quite so. They're not quite so bad, mostly because even if they're rusted up, they've got a massive spring behind with the kicker involved, so they're always going to work themselves loose because they've got that big energy in there.
Yeah.
But just actually physically putting oil on and cleaning inside those and putting some kind of anti-rust stuff in there is pretty great.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Short of wrapping it in a greaseproof paper, or probably more intelligently, and there's some amazing products out there now. One of those, a gun sock, a silicone infused gun sock. There's thousands out there with loads of different products in, and they're like £20 max.
Yeah.
Even if we're just putting them on your guns in cabinets to stop them kissing each other is a good idea.
Agreed.
I think.
No, I completely agree. I think it depends on kind of how much you value your guns and whether they're beaters or whether you've spent a bit of money on them. I think we've all got our own sort of level of how much effort we're willing to put in. But I just thought it would be really to do something to give people an idea of, oh, have I thought about that? Maybe I should just take a moment to look after me kit.
100%. And I think just a little bit of care does go a long way. And
Agreed.
like you said, most guns now will take a lot of abuse.
Yes.
But a lot of the time, if you look after it, it will take more abuse.
Yeah.
So to me, that feels like a good idea.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, mate. You take care.
You too, man.